for the next item.
Thank you, Mayor. So Michael, if you're okay, I'm just going to go ahead and lead off and introduce Betsy Watson. Betsy is our primary manager and overseer of the Main Street Design Project. Intimately involved for the last 2 years on this and has done a great job. Tonight, she is going to review with you, and it was in your packet, the recommendations for design elements on our Main Street project. We hope after tonight that we will take this input and start the design, continue to work through the design, but put these recommendations into what we're going from transition. We're starting to transition, I believe, Betsy, from 25% design all the way up to 75% design. And Betsy might touch a little bit on that, but over the next 2 to 3 months, you'll see a lot of activity, continued activity on Main Street as far as some surveying for right-of-way acquisitions and such. But this will be really the important conversation of the touch and feel and look of Main Street. So Betsy, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Certainly. Thanks, Kelly. Just a quick check to make sure you can hear me.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Mind if I share my screen? Okay. Let's see. Can you all see a streetscape elements basically? No? Okay. Let's see.
Now we can.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Okay, so like Kelly said, I'm Betsy Watson, and thank you for having me here tonight. It's good to be in front of you all again. Look forward to when we can get back in person. But tonight, as Kelly said, I'm here to present the results of the survey that you all put out on Stantec Prepared, but you all put out on your website, and it closed in early December. And we got some really great feedback and actually a really great level of public participation. There were a total of 917 respondents, which is really good. So to me, that just speaks to the level of engagement and hopefully the level of excitement for this project from the people of Rolesville. Okay, so we'll jump right in. The first survey question was about the Main Street median treatment options, and we asked folks to rank 5 options. So numbers 2 and 3 were in a tie for the public second most requested preference. So basically and what I'll do tonight is present what the results of the survey, but also present what we have, the landscape architect Amanda Morrill and I have then come up with as recommendations based on the survey results, comments we got, and also where we think this fits within the budget. So on this question, our design recommendation is actually a blend of options 1, 2, and 3, since these were close results. We want to incorporate large boulders and native plants. And based on sight lines and safety, we would incorporate only small clusters of ornamental trees in the median. We definitely can't put just evenly spaced trees in the median because it would prevent the view of certain movements making lefts, and it's just we also have to watch out for median widths and making sure the canopy doesn't encroach into travel lanes and things like that. But we are going to try and come up with a few specific locations just for some small clusters, again, of the ornamental trees. This is also, the medians present, Amanda, our landscape architect, who couldn't be here tonight, apologies, but she had a really neat idea about a possible partnership on annual color. She says, investigate partnership on annual color. And what she means by that is wanted to get the town's thoughts, and you can either chime in now or at the end or later, but wanted to get the town's thoughts on a potential civic group, garden club, or Rotary group being kind of taking ownership and being responsible for just a couple areas of the seasonal plantings, which are the highest maintenance, but also provide some of the sort of prettiest color and more formal areas. And we're not talking a lot. We're just talking about maybe leaving 2 or a couple areas that we call, pockets for seasonal color. And so that's an opportunity for the public to kind of be involved and have some ownership in the design and in the maintaining of the plantings. So that's just some food for thought for you all. But basically the median treatments are going to be a combination of these first three things that you see based on the survey results. On each question also, Amanda has put together what's called a Wordle, W-O-R-D-L-E. So basically this Wordle is where she's shown words that came up a lot in the public responses. And so the larger the word, the more times it came up. So we've got things like native plants. Of course, maintenance is a concern. You see that being a big word. Boulders, decorative. And then she's put together some of the kind of representative comments. Like these are just a couple of comments, but she felt like they represented a lot of what the public had to say. So in favor of including annual color, but love the idea of incorporating stones and boulders. This is a big area for granite. And then a lot of comments about native plants and how they're important for wildlife and pollinators in the environment. So definitely a desire for native plants. So again, we're looking at a combination of some formal plantings and seasonal color, possibly with partnership, native plantings, but also incorporating some stones and boulders. So those are the median treatments. Then we get into the options for the intersection of Main at Young and the public realm. So this survey question was about lighting. And on this one, there was a clear winner, a clear preference with almost half the votes for kind of a traditional pedestrian lamp with hanging planters. And not just planters, but banners are actually, this is a great place for banners that could be interchangeable, but possibly also in lieu of the planters. But here we do plan to proceed with, because this was such a clear winner, with a traditional looking pedestrian lamp. And we will be somewhat constrained by what type of pedestrian street lights that the utility providers offer. And so we have got some contact names for them, and forthcoming we'll be contacting them and try to get a kind of some cut sheets so that we know exactly what those will look like. While this ambient lighting was not the winner.
Betsy, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Those lights, are they in one particular area, or are they complete from the whole main street, from one end to the other? Where are they located?
These, I believe, will be mostly at the intersection with Young, but if I'm not mistaken, I think they will be at some regular intervals along Main. I would have to look into that answer for you, actually. I may be able to look at something really quick. And if I can't find the answer to that real quick, then I can take that down and get back to you. Let's see.
Okay.
Yes, pedestrian streetlights. No, we originally counted for a quantity of 66. They are along Main, heading into town toward Young. Yes. And not just at the intersection.
I think electrical providers change along Main Street, Kelly, so keep that in mind, because I guess it'd be two providers.
Kelly let us know that. So we have a contact for Duke right now, but haven't got a contact name yet for Wake Electric. So what we want to do is contact both of them and kind of get some options or catalog cuts or photos of what they have available. And our hope is that we're going to find something that looks a lot alike from each provider.
Good.
While the ambient lighting was not the winner, a lot of people did comment that they think something like this has a really great feel. And Amanda and I were thinking that maybe when you're coordinating with the developers of Cobblestone, I know they have some kind of public realm or event spaces within that development, but possibly maybe that's something that they could incorporate, or that we could talk with them about possibly incorporating as part of Cobblestone. So again, our design recommendation is the traditional pedestrian lamp and a potential banner location. And some of the little things on the Wordle are safety, of course, that's a big concern. We had a comment that ambient lighting could give life to our little town. Imagine it would be nice to feel like we can have a nice night out downtown just around the corner. And then somebody said I like a combination of all three. So, but definitely the traditional pedestrian lamps were the winner there. Okay. This question is about a hardscape option on the downtown sidewalks. And this is going to be not just sidewalks, but really those public realm spaces at the intersection of Main at Young. And you'll recall that the way that a couple of the buildings have angled fronts, that there are some rather large spaces in those areas. So it's not just sidewalks, it's kind of our public realm at those quadrants at Main at Young that are going to be in front of Susanna's Antiques and Rolesville Furniture. So the question was about what kind of hardscape, what's actually going to be under people's feet. And here, while this option C was actually the winner by a little bit, the comments that we got suggested that this exact thing is not really going to fit the bill, because we had a lot of comments that we agree with about strollers, wheelchairs, high heels, tripping hazards, wanted to make sure this is safe for all users, including elderly and everyone. So option A got a lot of votes. And based on kind of the votes that we got, plus some comments that we got, Amanda was actually thinking that rather than A or C, we would go with something that might look a little more like this, which is not exactly like this, but you see the ashlar pattern, which is kind of a random stone pattern. And this could be granite or possibly a stamped concrete that looks like granite. It wouldn't be exactly this. We would want to make sure that, again, the surfaces of the actual that people will be walking don't have too much relief and wouldn't have a trip hazard. So given that this is a little bit of a new direction that we're going in, Amanda has reached out to some of her contacts and at some stone centers, and I think she may still have some people that she's waiting to get in touch with. But her goal is to try and find a North Carolina supplier for this stone, which kind of brings us true, so it's more of a, true to local roots. And I think that seemed important to the people with the results of this survey. So this will vary some based on exactly what's available. So I think that this hardscape element is going to be an element where Stantec has a little bit more homework to do, and needs to show you kind of the options that we come up with based on what we find is available. So if that makes sense. So it's not even though C was the winner, our comments told us that this is not, we're not going to exactly go with that. So our design recommendation is for large format granite pavers in an ashlar pattern, which is that kind of random pattern with tight joints. Tight joints meaning not so big that a high heel is going to get stuck in them, or a stroller is going to, or a wheelchair is going to, provide a kind of a bumpy surface. And granite curbing is included, which is really just for, mostly for aesthetics. It's going to look really nice at the intersection of Main and Young. And again, our wordle when it came to those hardscape and sidewalk options, we have, of course, maintenance, but you see words like wheelchairs, that actually comes up a few times, natural, history, wanting to honor the history of Rolesville and the stone, tripping, I think somewhere we had women and heels and hazards. So that's definitely important to people. And I agree. We've got some neat comments. I feel like granite pavers goes along with the theme Rolesville can embrace and have a more natural look, but still pleasing to the eye. Granite reflects the history of the town well. Okay, survey question number 4 was about street trees. And we had a clear winner here for option 1 with street trees with low plantings. So here our design recommendation is street trees with low plantings. Quantity will be limited based on intersection design. And so what we mean there is basically these will be certainly larger type of trees than some of the smaller or low canopy ones that might be in the medians. So they're going to have to be placed very strategically. We're going to look at site distance. We're going to make sure they don't obstruct the view of cars who are approaching the intersection. We don't want them to obstruct the view of their ability to see a pedestrian that's crossing either in front of them or on the adjacent street, like if they're making a right turn. We need to make sure that any street trees do not obstruct the view of vehicles who want to make a right on red at the intersection. They'd be looking to their left. So we're going to look with all that. And we know we want trees to provide shade, but we also don't want the whole, and to shade the entire area. We want some sunlight to get through. So all that being to say that at Main at Young, we're not going to have just a ton of street trees. They're going to be very strategically placed. And that's what we mean by quantity will be limited based on intersection design. Ensure underground root space. So because this intersection has so much work going on and it's basically kind of a redesign, we have opportunity to put facilities under the sidewalk and under the pavement that will allow for root growth, because we want those trees to reach their potential. And if they're going to be shade trees, we want them to be able to grow big and do their intended job and provide some shade. And on that question, some things that people said are, fencing, trees, street trees with landscaping and traditional fencing would add so much, functional and attractive. So that's some of the comments that we got on the trees. Okay, and I believe this is our last question. We had a question on downtown seating options. We had a clear winner of some kind of traditional steel benches. So our design recommendation is benches, and if budget allows, support the purchase of movable tables or chairs for businesses to experiment with. So that's kind of, you see that option A did get 33% of votes, and we got some comments about movable tables and chairs. So our thought was, if there's budget for it, or if the town comes up with budget for it, and this is something that can easily be removed from the project if, at any time, if you want to go this route. But the thought was, if you just get, say, 4 sets of tables and chairs like this, kind of see how it goes. See if, on day one, you're not going to have a coffee shop or a cupcake shop necessarily, but maybe people will get a coffee at McDonald's and decide to either drive it down to, Main at Young, or walk down and just kind of take a seat and people watch and enjoy the new streetscaping and, see if they have a friend or neighbor come by. So it's kind of almost like a give it a try thing, but that's definitely not something that has to be part of the project. That was just part of our thoughts based on some of the feedback, and there seemed to be some interest in that. Okay, get to let's see, some things that people, and there is one more question after that. I'm sorry, I fibbed. But some comments on the benches that people had. I envision Rolesville being a small town where families can take a stroll through the town, grab something to eat, find a common area to enjoy food and company. And it says movable tables and chairs would best suit these purposes. So that's, again, that's part of why we thought that if, we can sustain, if the budget can sustain it, it would be fun just kind of for an experiment. And again, someone said a combination of all three would be nice. But certainly the steel benches were the winner, and those will be the ones that will be procured as actual permanent fixtures as part of the project. This is our last question, sorry. Question 6 was about a planter option. And we practically had some ties here. It was very close. A and C, we feel like emerged as the winners, both in the survey votes and also in some comments that we got. So here our design recommendation will be for bollard planters, which is these, you see the bollards with planters in them, and concrete or granite planters, which is this one. You can have either. You can have a concrete that kind of looks like granite, so it might save some money, but granite is obviously being truer to the Rolesville granite. The potential to combine into a reinforced concrete planter and alternate traditional bollards and planters. So we can actually alternate, look at our design and see where it makes sense. But basically, we're looking at having some combination of A and C. And some comments that we got here talked about these bollards and planters having the kind of, not only are they aesthetic, but the added benefit of some safety for the pedestrians, and I agree with this, it's a feeling of separation that an errant car is not just gonna hop the curb, whether on purpose or accidentally. And it provides some, visual separation for the pedestrian. But certainly we want to consider sight distance and not have anything too big or bulky that's going, again, like the trees, nothing that's going to obstruct sight lines where we need them. So again, one person's comment was, I get worried about safety on the streets with recent events of cars intentionally running over pedestrians. Bollards offer great protection. Myself, as a traffic engineer, I worry about distracted drivers and people who are unintentionally doing that, or possibly intentionally hopping the curb just to park or double park, to load or something. We want to discourage that, certainly. New and colorful additions will add to the beauty and serenity of the area. So those were the 6 questions on the survey. Again, we had some really great feedback and participation from the public. We were really happy to see that. I think too that when Amanda and I went through these options, we feel good about that the budget is going to be within what we budgeted in the fall of 2019, which we used for our basis for design, which we made some assumptions there, but we're definitely going to have some trade-offs. At that time, we had planned on a lot of median trees in the median space at regular intervals, and we now realize that we can't have quite that many because of sight distance and things like that. So we feel good that these trade-offs are going to get us within and be true to our what we originally budgeted. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Now, I will say I'm not, our landscape architect couldn't be with us, so I might struggle a little if you have questions about actual plantings and specific fixtures. But like Kelly said, I pretty much know everything going on the project and been on it for a couple of years, so we'll definitely do my best to answer any questions.
I did want to add one thing. You were talking about the small area in the median. We actually do have a community gardeners club of Rolesville, so I'm sure they would be definitely interested in that.
Do you think that would be, do they have kind of a budget of their own, or do you think that's something that it might be that if the town provided them with either the plants or money to buy plants, would there be a town participation, or do you think they have a large enough kind of established group that do they have their own budget, or is that something kind of to be determined?
Yeah, something to be determined, but we could definitely talk to them.
Yeah, TBD. Okay. I think it's a very meritable idea. Whether the town does or some civic group, I like the civic aspect, but I also like dedicated planting areas.
Yeah.
So I would recommend we proceed and then work on who and how for a later date.
Agree.
Wonderful. I was, when Amanda mentioned that, I was pretty excited about that. I hadn't thought of it, but I think to me, it's just a way more for the community to really, the survey in itself is a way for the community to have ownership of this project, but certainly with them maintaining a couple of these plant pockets, and certainly it would be manageable areas. I think Amanda was thinking of maybe 2 areas that we would reserve for the local participation. But I just think it's a great way for the Rolesville residents to have ownership of, this is going to be their Main Street. This will be y'all's Main Street.
Okay, so speak now, everybody, because this will be, after this, we will turn these into design. So any other questions? Betsy, I think we talked, there will be a visit by you when we get to the 75% design, kind of an update on the project, final kind of look at all this. Is that what you're proposing at some point?
Yes, that would be great. Right now we are, of course, earlier you alluded to the fact that we were recently at 25% design stage. Of course, that's just a number that we sort of assigned to a milestone, but we're certainly much more like 50 or 60% in design. So our next milestone that is coming up is called 75%, where we will have some hydraulic design added, pavement marking, and the upgrade of some ADA ramps along Main Street as part of a complete project. And also, a next step that I wanted to mention is we are developing a concept for the maintenance of both vehicular and pedestrian traffic at the intersection of Main at Young. As you know, that's going to be very impactful during construction, and we've been saying that for, definitely have engaged the property owners so that Mr. Edens and Mr. Privet and others down there know that this is going to be very impactful during construction. But at some point, probably in March, we would like to engage those stakeholders and give them an idea of what that's going to look like and take their feedback as to specific needs they have for what doors they need people to get into and where they take deliveries and things like that. So that's also a next step, Kelly.
I just want to clarify, this is Sheila. Will the wayfinding signage that we have be incorporated in this design?
We're definitely going to take into account the new wayfinding signing that's existing right now that you guys have recently implemented.
Yes.
Yes, so we're going to take account of where that is and make sure that any of our, basically Stantec is doing the signing for the project that's required by a DOT. So there's mostly speed limit signs, any warning signs, and things like that. So what we do is inventory where your wayfinding is and make sure that we're not spacing anything too close to one of your wayfinding signs or anything like that. I don't think anything we're doing will necessitate a need to modify any of your wayfinding signs. But if there is, we'll coordinate with you on that. So we definitely want to make sure that they're not, that they're not disturbed and that we don't put one of our signs right in front of one of those nice new wayfinding signs.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mayor. Well, sensing that we've had a good presentation and maybe the questions have been asked. And again, board, if you have something in the near future that you saw that triggers a question here soon, drop me a note or Michael. But otherwise, again, I think we've been very impressed by the participation. The elements being proposed are all within the proposed budget of the project. Public Works is obviously primarily concerned in DOT about maintenance, and we've talked about that at length also. But I think overall, the elements proposed are within the scope of everything we've been talking about. So if you have nothing else, I think we are done on this subject.
Thank you, Kelly. Board, we're sure all your questions been answered. Anybody got a last minute question? Not hearing any, then thank you, Betsy. Great job. Appreciate the hard work you put in on that, and amazed by the survey numbers. That's really, it's really impressive, and we'll have to kind of communicate that out somehow, Kelly, that, really good participation from the community on that. And thank you for coming, Betsy. And with that, I think the next item on the agenda is a recess to executive session. So do I hear a motion from anyone to do that?
I move that we recess to executive session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A6 for land acquisition purposes.
Okay, I heard Jackie Wilson made the motion for recess. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I heard a second from Paul Bilga. So with that, is any further discussion from the board? If not, Robin, can you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Medley,
I'm here.
is that an aye vote?
I'm sorry, I was getting ready to ask you that question where that's an aye vote, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Sneed,
Aye.
Commissioner Sutton,
Aye.
Commissioner Vilga,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
That is a unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you, Robin. So with that, let's recess to executive session.
For some reason, I thought you were saying, am I here? It's been a long day.